Florida State and Clemson story joining the Big 12, and the people tweeting over the weekend that this is happening within a year. Exactly how is this happening? And I think if you've watched this show for any amount of time, we've worked very hard to be accurate. Whether we are first or last, we've worked very hard to be accurate on this show about college football expansion, NBA trade talks, the things we talk about on this show. We talk about from a position of sourcing and information. And I can tell you, talking to sources around the Big 12, talking to sources in the TV industry who probably have the most to do with this, even more than those in college football, nobody believes that there is an agreement in place. Nobody believes that there is a clear path for Florida State and Clemson to join the Big 12 a year from now, 5 years from now. And again, before we get into the details of this, I just want to ask you, why are you so easily baited on this stuff? I've never understood it. Over 100 people on Twitter sent me Jason Scheer's embarrassing tweet about how, this is done, or it's not done. Nobody in the Big 12, not a single person in the Big 12 is telling anyone that Florida State and Clemson are joining the Big 12, not now, let alone a year from now. That's just not the case. That's not happening. There is no mechanism, and that is the wording that was used directly to me by not one but two people, TV and football sources, telling me many weeks ago, there is no mechanism for Florida State and Clemson to leave the ACC. They have let it be known that they are not going to buy their way out of the conference. And if you're not going to buy your way out of the conference, you will need to do one of two things. Find 10 fellow members to break the grant of rights to essentially melt the ACC down so that you can then go and join another conference. They've not been able to do that. And trust me when I tell you, Florida State and Clemson have tried to find 10 total members to break the grant of rights. They failed repeatedly. They are now also in court, as you are well aware. And I think people, and this is my opinion, I think people read far too much into the court's decision to give Florida State an unredacted copy of the ESPN broadcast agreement between the ACC and ESPN. A judge ruled last week that Florida State shall be given an unredacted copy of that contract. And I think people thought this was checkmate. I think people believe that there is some smoking gun in this contract. Do you think that the ACC and ESPN did not know that this was eventually going to be the outcome? Because there is no legal precedent to prevent Florida State from getting an unredacted copy of the contract that currently impacts them financially. There's no legal mechanism. There are contractual obligations that this judge agreed means that Florida State gets an unredacted copy of this contract. Now, also go back and read the limitations that are on Florida State. They had to agree to a confidentiality agreement, and they are not allowed to share that document with anybody else. So it's not like the judge said, well, you can just put this out on the interwebs. This was the eventual outcome. But this does not mean that Florida State won anything. This does not mean that there was a ruling in favor of Florida State. All this means is Florida State, and by extension Clemson, are moving through the process of litigation. They've won nothing. So again, I will tell you, there is no mechanism for Florida State and Clemson to leave the ACC. They are bound by two deals. They are bound by the grant of rights, and they are bound by the ACC charter. They have no way to get out of that, and no judge has given them that. So I think this is a lot of hyperbole. The idea, and try this on for size, the idea that the reporting is Florida State and Clemson are leaving the ACC to join the Big 12 within a year. He said within a year. Do you understand the splatter that is, the guesswork that is? And I'm not trying to be an asshole about this, but I just continue to ask you, why do you do this? Why do you put yourself in this position? Why do you believe when there is no legal precedent, there is no path? Right now, ask yourself this: how legally, how contractually, what does it look like for Florida State and Clemson to make a decision? And not even just the guy tweeting that within a year they're going to join the Big 12. Ask yourself this: what about all the people saying that they're going to announce at ACC Media Days that they are leaving the conference after 2024-25? A year from now, they're leaving the conference. So I ask you, how would that even be possible? How would it be possible? ACC Media Days coming up within a week. How would it be possible for Florida State and Clemson to announce their exit from the conference? And again, I ask one more time, why is everybody comparing Oklahoma and Texas to Florida State and Clemson? It tells you that people don't know what they're talking about. They're two completely different situations. And I think all this is, Jake, is grasping at straws.
100%. And I also think you got to consider the fact that we're in the slow time of sports season. So guys need stuff to write about. Guys need stuff to talk about. Guys need stuff to, create quote unquote content with. And I think that, again, your best point, in my opinion, is where does this artificial timeline of, hey, they're leaving the conference inside of a year, within a year, or a year from now even come from? And I think that's the thing that you as a sports fan have to kind of look for in reporting. Like if somebody says, hell yeah, we know, like we've been told by staffers or by people in the know that they're leaving in a year. Well, if they could leave in a year, why wouldn't they just leave now? Or why wouldn't they have left? Like, it doesn't add up. And I think that we get so caught up in the meltdown of these conferences. Like, if you go back and think about just how much vitriol and how much celebration I feel like there was when the Pac-12 kind of melted down, like people were all about it. And I think about the passion that the Oregon State fans had for their situation, how pissed they were. Like, this is right up that same alley. Like, we're sitting here looking at a situation where you've got two of the best teams in the ACC on the football field, not happy with their situation, but also having signed the grant of rights twice, trying to now get out of that contract. And there's just no way to do that. We've seen this time and time again. This is not the first time we've been on the, hey, we want to leave our conference train. This is not the first time that this conversation has been had in the history of college football. So I don't know why people gravitate so hard to one tweet or one guy who is rarely right about anything saying that this conference is going to, I guess, burn down in a year. Because by saying Clemson and Florida State are leaving in a year, you're saying the ACC is pretty much done. Because if Clemson and Florida State leave, everybody else is going to leave too.
And I think this is why I don't read DMs. I don't reply. I don't interact on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, because it just leads to ridiculousness. The hundreds of people who sent me all of these tweets. Jason Shear's tweet talking about how, and I think the exact verbiage in his tweet was something to the effect of, people in the Big 12 are saying or believe or that Clemson and Florida State will join the Big 12 within a year. And listen, believe it or not, I really don't care what I think you guys know that by now. I really don't care what people think. We talk to as many people in the Big 12 as anybody in this business. I think we demonstrated our connections during Big 12 expansion, and Jason has as well. I don't have a bone to pick with Jason Shear. I'm not trying to pick on him specifically. I look at all of the reporting. There's not a person in the Big 12 that I can find who believes Clemson and Florida State will ever be a member of the conference. I can't, and that includes Arizona. We are brilliantly, strongly connected in Arizona and Arizona State communities. Like at the top of the table, we are connected. None of them believe that Clemson and Florida State will ever be members of the league. I can't find a single fucking person in this league who was like, oh yeah, it's happening within a year. Not one, not a single one. And I furthermore can't find anybody in TV at any network, at any ad agency, anywhere who believes that Florida State and Clemson are going to ever be members of the Big 12. There simply is, as people have said repeatedly, and I'm assuming it's written in a document somewhere, but there is no mechanism for Florida State and the ACC or Florida State and Clemson to leave the ACC and join the Big 12. It's right now not even possible.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask yourself, if you go by extension, what is the logic if you are Florida State and Clemson to leave the ACC and join the Big 12? What are you going to make more money? Not currently. Now, I believe that every year going forward, the Big 12 will distribute more and more money. They're simply too aggressive in the commercial markets, and they are too aggressive in relationship building not to earn and make and distribute more money. There's no question about that. But this completely writes off the Super League premise.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're Florida State and Clemson, logically think through this. If a year from now we're leaving the conference, which is what a ton of people have reported, that I want to be careful. I'm not trying to, be grandiose over the top. Several people have reported that at ACC Media Day, they are going to announce a year from now they're leaving the conference. And I just ask you, how would they make that announcement now? Number one. But number two, if it is a year from now and they're going to join the Big 12 a year from now, the question I ask is, why would you do that?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't. Nobody in their right mind would. Yeah.
Because you're going to have options, right? And I'm telling you, this shit is completely, it's garbo. It's not happening. I frankly hope it does, because I would love to see this unfold.
Because it's garbage.
But explain to me why a year from now you would join the Big 12. Because certainly Florida State, Clemson to a lesser extent, Florida State can write its own ticket in football. And I would also remind you, they're a pretty prolific basketball program, and they're awfully good at stick and ball sports. They can write their own ticket. Why would they choose the Big 12? They can go to the SEC. They absolutely can. Florida, the Gators will pitch a fit, bitch and moan. They're about making money in the SEC, which I wish everybody else was about, because these conversations would be much clearer. But Florida State can go wherever it wants, and they want the SEC, from what I am told.
And I love the premise and all the reporting of this story that people think that they would only go to the Big 12 because they're so desperate to leave their conference. Like, oh, well, they're so desperate to get out that they're going to jump to the Big 12, ignoring the fact that it's not even possible for them to leave the conference, number one. But number two, the idea that in addition to that reporting, you would say they would go to the Big 12 as a full share member right out of the gate is incredible to me, dude. It's incredible to me that you think that, number one, it's just assumed that the Big 12 would just hat in hand, bend the knee to Clemson and Florida State, and would just love to have them, and whatever those two want, the Big 12 is going to shell out, because somehow the Big 12 is like a lesser conference. I agree the Big 12 is not making the money that, the Big 10 and the SEC are making. We all agree on that. It's pretty clear. But the Big 12 is its own conference. They do their own thing. They've got a very clear vision for where they want to go. So when I was looking at all this reporting, this is what stood out to me, that you're not only saying they're going to leave in this artificial year timeline, you're saying they're going to the Big 12 as a full share member day one, which we just haven't seen.
And again, all of this believes that a grant of rights you've tried to get out of, and let's be conservative, I think they've been trying to break that grant of rights in earnest with all of their effort for 3 years now. Not been able to do it. They signed it not once, but twice, and have not been able to prove duress. So they've given up. Florida State and Clemson have given up on we were out of our goddamn mind when we signed the second extension. 2, the ACC has damaged us, fiduciary responsibility, Stanford, SMU, we should have been in the college football playoff. That's quite literally and figuratively their argument. And that the grant of rights in the contract, because remember, again, and I just continue to tell you this, if you want to smoke out the guys who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, it's the guys who don't understand the grant of right and the TV deal are 2 totally different contracts.
Right.
The grant of rights again is between the universities and the conference. That's it. The TV contract is between the conference and the TV network. They're 2 totally different beings, 2 totally different documents. And yet people can't get their heads around that. If you didn't learn that in the Pac-12 meltdown, I don't know when you'll ever learn that, because that was the living example of how grant of rights and TV contracts are separate.
Well, and I think this grants of rights situation also has a big impact on the Big Ten and the SEC. Like if you're a school in one of those 2 conferences and you're looking, obviously A, at the Pac-12 situation over the summer, but then B, this ACC situation, I would think that's why guys like Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are so incentivized to create a new model that works to appease their members, right? Because the thing is, these 2 are businessmen. This would include Brett Yormark, right? These 3 guys are businessmen trying to run not only a profitable business, but a healthy business. And it's not good business anymore to be committing, to this sort of structure with the grant of rights and a TV contract and bringing it together. It's
interesting you bring that up, because another point that was made to me by a source in the Big 12 was, if you're Florida State and Clemson, is it smart business for you to be making an arrangement with the Big 12 today to be saying, oh yeah, handshake, we'll join your conference as soon as we're done with this? That's a terrible business decision. Like, you're not doing that. Now, these are also people who have made terrible business decisions, signing the extension of their grant of rights. Right. But it's terrible business when you're in the middle of litigation that doesn't have a clear ending, when your conference is divided, that you would go and make an agreement with the lowest revenue generating league available to you, when by other reports the Big Ten and the SEC are interested in Florida State and Clemson. And all of this to say, did anybody ask North Carolina and Duke what their opinion is? Because they're the ones that are going to ultimately make this or break this.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're trying to report that a year from now, Florida and Clemson or Florida State and Clemson are leaving the ACC, you're saying the conference is going to burn down in a year. Like, if those 2 leave, this conference is in meltdown mode, like, instantly. Like, again, UNC and Duke are out for sure. At that point, then obviously you're going to take a good hard look at what Notre Dame is going to decide to do.
Who are the other 6? Like, this is where I truly believe people sit around and they're like, well, the Virginia schools in Louisville, and you don't have 10 members of the ACC willing to say today, I'm out. You don't have that. And again, the ACC lives and dies on Tobacco Road. We can huff and puff with Florida State. Multiple people have told me Clemson just carries no weight. Clemson carries no weight. There is, I believe the things that I hear about Clemson when I am told by important, substantive people that Clemson's brand is significantly damaged by Dabo Swinney.
And I don't know why anybody would respect Dabo Swinney. I mean, it's the Alabama situation, right? Like, Dabo was the first guy in his khakis and his orange sweater knocking on Alabama's door, trying to be the successor to Nick Saban. And Alabama didn't want anything to do with that. And it's very clear. And I think it does impact other conversations. If you're not going to be an act or a proactive personality in your conference when it comes to, the way the game is being played now with NIL and portal and the new age of money and everything that's going on, and Dabo hasn't been that guy, Clemson's not going to walk into a college football playoff meeting, an ACC conference meeting, and all of a sudden be everyone's All-American. And that's what I'm saying. Like, Florida State, you understand their value. They're a college football playoff team. Like, you get it, right? Stick and ball sports, you get it. But with Clemson, I'm not sure that Dabo is regarded as some amazing guy.
Maybe the word of the day is damaged goods.
Yeah, right?
Who is Clemson? Zach LaVine?
Yeah.
Clemson is damaged goods right now. All of that to say, just slow your roll. You have to let this litigation play out. Do you understand the amount of money that Florida State has spent on this litigation? The man hours at the state employee level. Do you understand the number of man hours that have been spent by Florida State at the state employee level? It's astronomical. They're tens of millions of dollars in fees, man hours, salaries. They're tens of millions of dollars into this ACC lawsuit.
So you're complaining you're not making enough money, but then on the other hand, you're happy to just burn a hole paying for litigation.
It's remarkable the amount of assets and resources Florida State has deployed into this lawsuit to then put the cart before the horse and announce you're leaving the conference at ACC Media Day.
And I also might add, just logically speaking, if you're Florida State and Clemson, you can't honestly expect Duke and UNC to follow you on this charade in the court system. They've got better things.
But again, a really good example. North Carolina was joining the lawsuit. They didn't.
Yeah, where's that?
Why? And again, I know this is common sense, and I'm the asshole, and I totally get it. Why would anybody else in this conference spend a penny to join the Florida State Clemson lawsuit? Is it going to help that case? It's not. Adding every member of the ACC to this lawsuit would not strengthen their case, right? And again, if you're Florida State and Clemson, you need 8 other members to get out of the grant of rights. None of the other teams in the conference are joining your lawsuit to this point or willing to be one of 10 and leave the conference.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to watch you burn tens of millions of dollars litigating this case on their behalf. Because if all of these ACC members are so wildly unhappy, and when we say all, let's be very careful here. When Florida State and Clemson, when the Carolina schools and Duke, to a lesser extent Miami, are so unbelievably unhappy, why aren't they joining the lawsuit? Why aren't they spending their money? Because they don't have to. And I think most of the members of the ACC understand who they are and where they are. And I think Clemson doesn't. And I think now, and this goes back to the Kyle Whittingham comments last week. Kyle Whittingham basically said, hey, yeah, we're heading for a Super League. And I tell you, apply this comment from Kyle Whittingham while thinking about the ACC and how a year or so, and again, I just want to make sure, because I'm guessing people are freaking out about it. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I in no way, shape, or form have been told or believe that Florida State and Clemson are leaving the ACC this week, or that a year or so from now will join the Big 12. But ask yourself, in the context of Florida State and Clemson leaving the ACC and the ACC melting down, who do you believe? The interwebs or Kyle Whittingham?
So much change already, and there's more on the horizon, I can tell you that. We're not done. I think it's ultimately going to get to 2 super conferences and their own playoff system and probably break away from the NC2A, have a commissioner and all. An NFL minor league model, I think, is where we're heading in that regard.
There you go. Kyle Whittingham on 365 Sports.
what else do you need to see? I mean, this is I can't think of a better way to say it, dude. Like, you have a D1 Power 4 like big wig telling
College
you what's
football
gonna happen,
playoff
dude.
contender.
Yeah, like, come on, man. What, like, UNC and Duke and all these other big wigs in the ACC don't have motivation to get on board your little charade over here, as I like to call it. There's no point.
And as it was pointed out to me over the weekend, did everybody just forget about the lawsuit, the NIL lawsuit, and the tens of millions of dollars these schools each have to spend on settling that case? So if you're North Carolina, Duke, Miami, North Carolina State, are you going to jump onto another tens of millions of dollars worth of a bill and expense on top of your NIL settlement? No, you're not going to do that. There's no reason for you to do that. So all I ask of you, and we're going to get to the comment section, and you guys are going to lose your shit, and I get it. I don't know what I'm talking about. My sources are all, trust me, bro. Totally understand. I get it. This is why I don't get involved in Twitter. This is why I don't read notifications or DMs. Sorry if you've DM'd me, and I saw, and I will give. I want to say his name is Sparkle Jimmy. I can't. It's Sparkle.
Hey, Jimmy.
Sparkle James, who is a Florida State fan, who has found alternative means for sanity, as I believe he put it. Sparkle James is the one guy's DM that I read. Because yesterday when I logged in to look at my DMs, I had roughly 375 DMs. And just taking a cursory view, at least 100 of them were, dude, did you see this tweet? And it is, and I'm happy for Jason Shearer. I mean, that guy breaks his ass to be an independent. And if you guys don't know Jason Shearer, I would encourage you to go read his stuff on Arizona. He is by far the best Arizona guy.
Yeah.
It's not even close. I thought he was really good on the Pac-12 situation. He was obviously really good on this Bobby Robbins situation. Like, Jason Shearer does good work, which is why it's so surprising to me that he's tweeting about sources in the Big 12 believe Florida State and Clemson will join the league in a year or so.
So take a look at that wording, though, and that was the other point I wanted to make. The word, I love when reporters, and nothing against Jason, anybody that I see in the landscape, right? I love when I see the word sources believe X is going to happen. So you're telling me that someone told you that the opinion is that X item may or may not happen. Not, hey, I've been definitively told it is going to happen or it's not going to happen. Just that people believe it will happen.
Correct.
That would be like Woj tweeting, yeah, I believe that sources believe, Lauri Markkanen's going to get traded to the Dallas Stars in the NHL.
In a year or so.
Like, what are we doing, dude? Come on.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. And hey, man, I say more power to you.
And by the way, this is the type of thing that the Big 12 can't get wrapped up in. I just want to point that out too. The Big 12 can't afford to have, some rain cloud chilling over the conference as it pertains to expansion or realignment. Can't have that.
And I also think this is why the majority of people I spoke to about this were much more interested in talking about a super league, and we're much more like the first person I spoke to about this went directly to what Kyle Whittingham said. And I agree with the sentiment that that's not a year or so away. That's actively happening. The structure for a super league, 2 super conferences, whatever you want to call it, that's actively in the works.
Consolidation so we can all make more money.
Florida State and Clemson joining the Big 12 is not actively in the works. And it's on the channel. Go back and watch it if you like. It's what I told you 3 months ago. Brett Yormark and his emissaries are talking to everybody. And if we look back at history, what we reported during the Pac-12 meltdown, Brett Yormark has done an exceptional job of building a network of relationships with BYU and Utah. Tom Homo acting as a conduit for communication between the Big 12 and Utah. It's exactly how he does business. We told you then what we'll tell you now. Brett Yormark has talked to everybody in the ACC. I understand that Florida State and Clemson, because of their litigation, they're the sexy one to pick on. Knock yourself out, man. They're not in any way, shape, or form in a position to say, yeah, we'll join your league in a year or so. Give us a year or so and we'll join your league.
Why don't you call me back? Let's set up a Google Calendar reminder for a year from now, and we can talk about signing the paperwork.
There's no...
Come on.
And I just will continue to say, the money doesn't make sense. Use common sense. Does the money make sense for Florida State to pass on an SEC or a Big Ten invite? Because anybody that thinks the Big Ten or the SEC, and I think it's the SEC, it's just my opinion based on people I've spoken to, that the SEC is the only fit for Florida State. Does anybody think that the SEC is going to pass on Florida State? Just a straw poll here on little old Monty Show.
Right.
Does anybody here think that the SEC passes on Florida State?
No.
Because I can't see that happening. And if you're Florida State, are you taking the Big 12 over the SEC? Now, in Bobby Bowden's times, Bobby Bowden straight up said, yeah, we chose the ACC over the SEC because it was an easier path. Well, that's no longer the path. That's no longer the BCS isn't here anymore. And I think we learned something last year. The ACC is not exactly the easiest path, even if you are undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if you ask Norvell and the boys in Tallahassee, are you going to tell me they don't believe they're one of the 12 best teams in the country?
Yeah, I believe they're one of the 12 best teams in the country. I think most people do. The problem is you weren't one of the best 4 teams in the country last year. And that just is what it is. But I think the reality of the situation is that nobody is going to go out of their way to help these two. And that, to me, is the point that you can't get away from. There's nobody that's going to say, yeah, you know what? We're going to pour all of our money into this. We're going to just go out of our way to make sure that this happens. What? For what? I'm a huge believer when it comes to business, especially in college athletics. So you have to have motivation in all parties for something to happen. So the Super League, everyone's got motivation, right? We're going to open it up. We're going to make more money. The path is going to be clear.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense right now for whoever, like in the ACC, to follow these two because nothing good happens to them. It doesn't help them.
And again, one of my TV guys, one of my top go-to TV guys, made a great point the other day. Can you imagine being Florida State? You've got your governor, you've got your attorney general, you've got all of the assets at the university and the state level deployed to help you. You're spending tens of millions of dollars so that you can leave the ACC to join the Big 12. And I quite enjoy the Big 12.
Great conference.
I'm a Notre Dame fan. We don't win shit. So I enjoy the Big.
Notre Dame, our mother.
I'm not ripping the Big 12, but are you spending all of this money, time, assets, resources, humanity to leave the ACC to join? That you're not. There's no way that unless the SEC and the Big Ten tell you to pound sand, which I don't think they're going to. And then all of this says, Super League's not happening. Which I think it is.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. Make sure you join us on Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Use the promo code Monty to get 100% deposit matching. College football, the NFL are here. Training camps are open. Don't wait. Do it today. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty. 100% deposit matching up to $100. Trust me when I say it is easy to do better than Jake on Prize Picks because, frankly, he never wins anything.
It's true.
I love Prize Picks, whether it's golf, whether it is the Euros, this disaster at the Copas last night in Miami. We'll get to that in a while. any sport you love, Major League Baseball, certainly fantastic on Prize Picks. It is so much fun. It is daily fantasy at its best. Join the tens of millions in their community already playing daily fantasy at prizepicks.com. Use the promo code Monty. Who's first one in this morning? Let's go all the way back to the top, which is always Little Jizzy is first one in today.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jizlets. Pete Forte, hello. Ryan Smith's receding hairline. We show up. Hello.
We show up.
There you are. Midweek Coug. Hello. Big Blue Horses. Hello. Matt Ritson. Hello.
Morning hyenas.
There you go. Mike Smith, Mountain Mama. How dare the SEC come into Dallas, an ACC country?
Yeah, seriously.
Again, I think it's very interesting that you have the Big 12 in Las Vegas for not 1 but 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why are you not doing Big 12 Media Day in Dallas? That, for me, that's a hill you die on.
100%. And the only logical thought with it would be that, hey, we've brought in, Western wing of the conference here, frankly, from the Pac-12, and maybe you were just looking to satiate that. You were looking to say, okay, the first media day that, these 4 new schools are going to have with us, we'll do it in Vegas. But I agree, to do it for 2 years and not be in Dallas is a little surprising.
Mike Smith, the problem is Jason Scheer didn't not say it was a done deal, but those reading it and then passing it on, the info basically says it is. Jason Scheer, and again, I want to make sure I get this right. Jason Scheer said he was told by sources in the Big 12 that they believe Florida State and Clemson will join the Big 12 in a year or so, I believe is the exact verbiage he used. Okay. I can think of two universities in the Big 12 that we probably have not talked to about this at one time or not. Nobody has said, "Oh yeah, we're
all about it."
And I having sources at Arizona State, and on the Arizona Board of Regents, nobody there believes it. I just think it's a bunch of hyperbole. I think it's a bunch of people's opinions. I don't know who Jason Scheer talked to. I have no reason to believe that he would make up why would he make that up? But what I'm telling you is it's a ridiculous belief. There's just no, it's crazy to me. That shirt, Monty, I feel like I'm at a theater watching the start of a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I walked in and I said, nice shirt, dude. I mean, I like the shirt.
It is what it is. Mike Smith, I like the shirt. Thank you. Are
Yeah.
we really debating my shirt?
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
Shirts on the show are a thing, man. I've gotten beat over the head for my teal shirt in prior shows.
Okay. Well, I recently on our trip to Hawaii, I left a drawer full of polo shirts in Kauai. And the Weston was so lovely about it. But they threw them in a box and mailed them back to me. So yesterday being laundry day, all of my polo shirts are clean. I have like 30 polo shirts hanging in my closet begging to be worn. So, James, stadium guy and loves Buc-ee's. I got into an argument with a knothead on Twitter. Again, you guys don't get on.
Yeah, it's just a waste of your time.
Your life is worth more than whatever happens on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm telling
really
you.
Sad that it's turned into that too, because Twitter used to be a good thing.
But again, with everything that happened this weekend, have we not learned that keyboard warrior words matter? So when you get into it with guys on Twitter, or it's why I don't read DMs. It's why I don't read my notifications. It's why I don't respond to people on Twitter, because 9 out of 10 people on Twitter are just there to feel better about themselves. And usually that means that they're going to insult people and get into it with people. And it's really unfortunate, because I actually think there is a good community and there are good conversations to be had on Twitter, or X to be correct. But I just don't believe that is the norm anymore on Twitter. It's what got everybody off of Facebook all those years ago now, that you couldn't believe a thing you saw on Facebook, right? And it's where we're going. It's remarkable to me that people think, oh, well, you won't answer me on Twitter, I'm going to message you on Instagram, or I'm going to block you on Instagram. I don't read people's... Social media is ugly.
Yeah.
Social media is negative. And the sad thing is, we have so many people that get validation in their lives on social media, especially in our business, in sports. And so many people are so interested in being right. And when you, like, how many times on the show have people come in the comment section, you've never been right about anything? Or on Twitter, you were telling me last week, some guy was like, you've never been right on anything. Here's all the things you're wrong about. And he listed all the things we were right about.
Yeah.
And to the point where everybody was like, well, actually, all those things happen.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. It is to the point where I was talking to a guy at a Big 12 university last week, and we laughed about it. Because and I don't care if you hate that I say it, we were so far ahead of the curve on Pac-12, the Pac-12 melting down, and we had the Pac-12 apologists apologizing to us.
Yeah.
Because of the things they had said about us.
Well, and I just think that the thing you got to keep in mind with Twitter is it's just easier to hate. Like, people, like, it is the easy button to come in and be like, hey, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're not right about anything, nice shirt, you're an idiot. That's just what people do. Like, it's just,
you're
it's
fat,
culture,
you're stupid,
dude.
Nobody likes you. Like,
when instead, if you would just say, hey, yeah, you know what, you guys nailed the Pac-12 situation. You nailed the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert thing with the Jazz. You've been pretty good on the Jazz.
You've been great on Big 12 expansion. Haven't missed, right? Like, look at this story with, and all of these stories about Big 12 expansion. Who told you Brett Yormark and his people were talking to Duke and Carolina? Who told you they reached out to the Virginia schools? Who told you that they reached out to Louisville? Proof is in the pudding.
We're not telling you we believe they reached out to them. We're telling you they did.
I got into an argument with a knothead on Twitter about this, and I was roasted for saying the grant of rights was ironclad. People don't like the truth.
What did you think they were going to say?
People don't like the truth. The grant of rights, call it what you want, the ACC grant of rights, they've been trying in earnest for 3 years. And we talk about tens of millions of dollars they've put into this lawsuit. Has anybody thought about the legal fees that Florida State and others have spent exploring the grant of rights and trying to find a hole in it? I mean, are they at $50 million? Has to be.
I mean, maybe we should start saying Florida State's not paying the bill, their donors are, because you can't tell me it's just coming out of the budget.
And the thing I say about the grant of rights is if there was a loophole or a way out, they wouldn't be asking for unredacted copies of the TV contract. You would be out of it already. If it was so easy, do you really think the people at Florida State are stupid? They're wildly intelligent, very good at what they do, and they're paying the best legal minds they can find. And they're great attorneys. Their legal representation is fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you really think those people wouldn't have gotten out of that grant of rights already if it was possible? No. Because if it was possible, they wouldn't be in court, and they wouldn't be asking about TV contracts, and they wouldn't be, you wouldn't be talking about how embarrassing SMU is to the conference.
Yeah.
But you are, because there's no way out of that grant of rights.
Well, and I think that that's the hard part for the ACC is, like, the SMU thing happened, and then obviously Calford, and now you're here. And at some point, your reputation as a conference starts to come into question a bit. Like, okay, obviously, maybe the way people view the ACC right now is not the best, but I think the other side of the coin is, hey, you're still making the money. You've got a contract that says you're getting paid this baseline of money for what is another 12 years, I believe it is.
Correct.
So you have more security financially.
Which is what you opted into.
Yeah, you signed it not once but twice.
That's why you signed it.
That was the selling point.